Hello and welcome back to the probe. This is sports writing. The main objectives of this video lesson is to introduce to you certain concepts about sports writing and maybe give you a bit of a background about how do sports writers work in the publication, even in the side of the court. Ayan. So the main objectives of this video lesson are the following. So first one is to know the main difference between a straight news story and a sports story, and then to know the requirements of good sports writing. That's the second one. And then the third one is to know how to cover a sports event. Alright, so the first among our lessons or discussion, or the first among my lecture for you in this video lesson is what are the requirements for sports writing. Okay, so the same rules actually apply and principles in news writing. They are actually the same in sports writing too. Pareho lang naman sila ng talagang gustong mangyari. So they both want to tell the story. And so you just have to expect, of course, that they're going to have the same rules and the same principles. The second requirement, though, is something that is not very much needed when it comes to news writing, and that is the knowledge of the rules, strategy, the teams, the players, and their records. You also have to know the kinds of methods that are scoring methods that are being used in various sports events. Kapag sports writer ka, kailangan medyo meron ka rin talagang alam pagdating sa sports na kino-cover mo. Yes. If you're not that good at speaking their language, it may be quite difficult for you, of course, kasi you need to know why they had that score, and then you also need to know why they were given penalty. You have to be able to explain that. You have to be able to catch that. And as a sports writer, napaka-importante na mabilis yung pickup mo. Kasi mabilis yung bola. Okay, so you have to follow the ball in the court. You have to follow the shuttlecock as it gets passed from one player to another. You have to follow the ball across the net. Okay, so if you don't understand the rules, it may be very difficult for you to give the experience to your readers. Kaya mas maganda actually kung yung nilalagay na sports editor or sports writer sa mismong courtside also knows how to play that sport, or is very someone who is very interested in the sports that they are covering. Dapat ganun. The second one is strategy. Various players, may mga tried and tested ng mga strategies, and then various players and teams, they tend to use these strategies for particular games. If the sports writer catches a particular strategy or sees a pattern in the game, that would be better. That would be better for the article, because the sports writer can give a bit of more meat, a bit of more insight in the article than just merely reporting what happened. Instead of just telling the readers that nanalo si ganito or nanalo si na ganito, and then natalo tong mga to by this kind of score, the sports writer can add that detail, like they defeated the other team because of their kind of approach in the beginning of the match. Like in the first and second quarter, maybe they were not really exerting so much effort. They were not moving a lot in the court because they wanted to reserve that energy for the third and fourth quarter, because maybe they noticed that the opposing team are very energetic. They are moving a lot in the first two quarters, and they used that, they leveraged that, they took advantage of that. pinagod nila yung yung kalaban until pagod na sila in the third and fourth quarter, sila naman yung bumawi. Well, maybe that was also done without losing the first 2 quarters. That is a strategy, or actually, there are so many other strategies that are more elaborate than that one. But that is something that the capturing of a strategy must be something that a sports writer is capable of relaying to the readers. The next one is team. Kailangan kilala din ni sports writer yung mga teams niya mismo. Okay, so well, kung first time pa lang niyang mag-cover, siguro kailangan niya ng mas matagal ng editorial board and staff member. Kasi hindi siya makakapagbigay talaga ng background dun sa team na yon kung bago-bago pa lang siya, lalo na kapag freshman yung pinag-cover ninyo ng isang sports event, ng isang importanteng sports event sa school. Syempre wala naman siya last year dun sa event last year, so wala naman talaga siyang alam, 'di ba? Dun sa kung anong klaseng performance ang meron yung team ng sabihin na lang natin ng college na to o kaya ng institute na to last year. So well, pwede naman niyang basahin yun. Kaya dapat very well guided yung mga sports writers ng editorial board ninyo. Knowledge of a team includes rereading their past performances based on the previous releases of the newspaper. They can also interview certain people such as managers, coaches, and inquire how did the team perform in the previous years. They can do that so that they would be able to add some more meat, some more detail to their sports story. The last one, player records naman. So this is especially important for spectacular plays. There are certain players, we have to admit it or not, who are shining in particular seasons, and in the campus, varsity players tend to get some fame by being the superstar of a particular game, right? It's important for the sports writer then to know who those superstars are. Kailangan alam niya at kilala niya yung mga yun, ilang taon na sila, ganon, anong course ang kinukuha nila, o kaya anong strand, kung senior high school yan, anong strand na kinukuha nila, gano'n na sila katagal naglalaro ng basketball, gano'n na rin sila katagal naglalaro ng competitive basketball, at ano yung mga styles nila, ano yung mga parang signature moves ng mga players na yan. So, the sports writer, lalo na talaga, it's gonna be quite a big problem if the sports writer is a freshman. Kaya kailangan to solve that problem, the sports writer must read, and he or she or they must be guided by some more senior members of the editorial board and staff. Kailangan exposed siya dun sa sports climate ng school. Kailangan exposed siya sa sports climate even ng area o kaya ng zone o kaya ng cluster. Several schools are participating in zonal events, di ba? Several schools are participating in cluster events. Several schools are also participating in intercollegiate or inter-university events. The sports writer must also know about that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work actually. A lot of people or a lot of writers may actually take sports writing for granted. Like they think it's easy. Like you just report sports like it's minor compared to the big news, like accidents, or compared to the political events that are transpiring in our surroundings that are being reported in news. No, actually, sports writing is special, and it is also difficult in its own respect. Ayan. So, kailangan malaman din or marunong din na mag-score yung sports writer. Kailangan meron din siyang sarili niyang tally ng scores. Kailangan niya ring i-reference yun dun sa mismong tally na nakita niya or binigay ng mga sports organizers. Okay. In the editorial board, the sports writer must keep track of former games. Ito yung sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, in the school. Ayan, so kung ikaw, sports writer ka, kailangan mong magtanong-tanong sa mga miyembro, mga senior members din ng inyong editorial board and staff kung ano yung mga naging performance ng mga players tsaka ng mga teams sa iba't ibang mga sports events sa mga nakalipas sa mga sabihin na natin intramurals. Usually, intrams. Yung mga kino-cover ninyong mga sports events, diba? So, i-review nyo yun. Aside from those releases, maganda rin if the newspaper is keeping notes from the reporters who covered the events by the side of the court. Usually, kinikip na lang talaga is yung copy, diba, ng mismong release. Pero mas maganda siguro kung yung buong notes, no, itabi siya sa office ninyo. Mag-keep kayo ng, sabihin na lang natin, ng isang folder ng lahat ng mga notes ng mga nag-cover ng mga sports event. Ayusin ninyo. Tapos ilagay nyo siya sa isang folder and then lagay nyo siya ng school year o kaya ng name ng event. Lagay nyo rin ng year, of course, para alam nyo yung reference. And then, you just have to store it in the office so that the future sports writers are not going to have a very difficult time reviewing what happened in the previous years, because they're supposed to keep track of the sports history of the school. Okay, so baka makalimutan na ng lahat ano, sino yung mga nanalo, sino yung mga star players, diba? So give these sports writers that kind of luxury. Ayan. Na-clarify ko na rin before ko lang talaga iwan tong part na to because it's really important, no. Yung record na yon, you have to keep it. Record ng mga naging events sa school, yung intrams, yung mga naging results last year, yung mga naging notes ng mga sports writers na nag-cover ng mga individual events in the intramurals. Ayan, i-keep nyo yun as one folder and maybe name it as Intramurals 2021. Ayan. And then, if halimbawa, in the same year, 2021, mayroong sumali na isa sa mga students ng school ninyo sa karate do, like, diba? It's an inter-school or maybe it was a cluster-wide event. You may want to consider covering that too and then storing the information and then put it in a separate folder and then name that folder pwedeng like kasi ano yung sa Angeles City yung parang cluster event. Ayan, so you may write the name of the event if it's a zonal event and then put the year when it was conducted. Ayan. And then put it in a folder, like a physical folder or maybe in an electronic folder, and just make sure that you back up those files. And that is how I think your editorial board and staff should function. You are not only keeping all of these notes for a particular school year, you're also keeping these notes, these data for the school years to come. Okay, so keep that in mind. I know maybe this is the first time that I talked about this. Like, it is already the 10th video in this series. Pero I'm happy that I pointed this out with you. Okay, the next part of our lecture is how to cover the game. Elena Q. Tanodra said that sports writers, professional sports writers write with speed and accuracy. Bago pa man mag-start yung game, kailangan nabivisualize na ng mismong sports writer kung ano ba ang ibig sabihin nung game para sa isang koponan. Okay, so kung halimbawa yung team is nangungulelat na talaga dun sa tournament, ano bang ibig sabihin nung game na yon? Like, if they win, what does that mean for them? If they lose, what's gonna be the meaning of that to them? And if they they fall into a draw, they end with a draw, what's gonna be the meaning of that for that team and maybe their opponent too? What's gonna be the meaning of that? Visualize that as a sports writer, because you will understand further the kind of gameplay that these players are doing or giving to a particular match. Mas maintindihan mo sila kasi alam mo na rin or na-visualize mo na rin kung gaano ba ka-importante yung match na yun para sa kanila. Okay. Now, aside doon, kapag alam mo na or medyo na-visualize mo na kung gaano ka-importante and why is it important for them to win in that game, mas malalaman mo, mabilis mo na lang malalaman kung paano mauumpisahan yung lead mo para sa article mo. Yan. So, yung lead, you know naman, di ba? It's a really important part of your article. So, if there is a way to make it easier for you to write it, this might be one of the ways that you should be considering. You have to visualize how important and why is it important for that particular team to win in that event. This is gonna help you. Another thing that Elena Q Tanodra pointed out was that sports writers don't need to wait for the sports events to be held. This is a common mistake. This is a common mistake among editorial boards. They are waiting for the intramurals para mag-function yung sports unit nila. And the sports writer was just chill, no? The sports editor is just chill because they were still waiting for a big event ng school. And usually nga, ayun, it's the intramurals. No, according to Tanodra, before the sports events even started, you may actually, or the sports writer may actually think about or write about the player prospects of the teams and the achievements of the teams from the previous years. Ayan, so pwedeng mag-backtrack tayo ng mga records natin from the previous years. Gamit na nga yung sinadjust ko sa inyo kanina ng mga data ng campus paper. Ayun, tapos sinabi ko na rin to, pwede na rin kayong mag-interview ng mga coaches o kaya ng mga team managers para malaman ninyo or mas magkaroon pa kayo ng idea kung ano yung mga pwedeng i-expect ng tao for this year's events. I would like to emphasize that the sports editor must create an excitement din. Okay? Hindi lang yung parang, okay, ito po yung mga nangyayari last time. Parang, kumbaga, i-prep mo yung mga readers mo. Like, ano kayang expect natin this year, di ba? So, yung player na to, napakalakas nito. Tapos ngayon, ang balita is parang kukunin siya ng kabilang team. Ayun, malay natin, di ba? Like, there may be some intramurals in this country sa school, na yung school nila, they allow like transferring a student from one team to another. Maybe it was like the student was previously from the TVL track and now lumipat siya ng STEM, so magbabago na siya ng team, and nung previous year na nasa TVL siya, nanalo sila because yun nga, malakas din yung laro niya. Ngayon na nasa STEM na siya, how will that change, di ba? TVL, how are they going to maintain the championship? Say in a specific sports event like basketball, how are they going to maintain that now that their superstar player is on the opposing team? Ayun, so you may write about that. These are very significant news. So you have to prepare, you have to create anticipation among your readers. I know that we just usually release one release, diba? We usually give out or publish one release in a school year. Pero if you would just arrange this sports page, like maybe put as well a sports column in there, it's gonna be a very good page. Like the spread is going to be worth the read. Hindi siya iisnabin. I have seen several campus papers na nilalagay nila yung kanilang mga sports events sa may bandang dulo. Sa may bandang last. You can just expect na baka pagdating ng mga readers sa may bandang dulo, pagod na sila or what, diba? Pero magbasa. So, the task now of the sports editor is to make the end of the newspaper for those campus papers to make it very exciting and very worth it. Okay, dapat worth it siyang basahin. The last one is the fact that great stories can be obtained by getting acquainted with the players must be emphasized to our sports writers. If the sports writer is very amicable, like kaya niyang makipag-close sa mga players, ayan, kaya niyang mag-interview nang hindi siya syempre super nahihiya sa mga players, that's a plus. May mga times din that the sports writer is also a player. Okay, player din siya dun sa isa sa mga teams ng college, ng university o kaya ng school. And that is an advantage kasi nasa loob na siya and kilala na niya yung mga pwede niyang interviewin. What does that create ba? When a sports writer is acquainted with the players, he, she, or they understand where the players are coming from. Mas maintindihan din nila, mas makikita pa nila yung mga kayang gawin ng mga players. Mas makikita din nila kung ano talaga yung mga aspects ng laro ang pinagfo-focusan ng mga players. Like, a player may be actually focusing so much on making sure that the ball stays in the team. Okay, so baka in the practices, mapapansin na yon ng sports writer na matagal nang pinaghahandaan ng player pala na to na yung pagki-keep ng ball sa team. Siya yung talagang nagki-keep ng bola. Hindi niya hinahaya ang tumatagal yung bola sa kalaban. Siya yung nagnanakaw ng bola, nag-i-snatch ng bola at napakabilis niya at yun yung pinapractice niya ng paulit-ulit. And that can add spice, that can add some more points of interest in this sports story. Yeah. Another thing is that kailangan when the sports writer, syempre it's a very it's a quickly written article. The sports writer must be able to act quick, to think quick, and to write quick. And usually we miss including certain details that are very important pala dun sa article. So what we need to always remember as sports writers, and actually even sa mga ibang mga clients of an articles, is that we have to check whether the articles didn't miss the name of the players. Kailangan alam yung mga pangalan na you're pointing them out. Hindi yung basta Bautista lang siya nakalagay o kaya Gutierrez lang. No, dapat nandoon yung name ng mga players. The kind of contest that they participated in, is that a tournament? Is that like semi-finals na ba yun? Nasa may finals na ba yun? Diba? Is it the first game, the 3 games na in-expect natin na lalaruin nila? You have to specify that. You also have to specify the venue. You have to specify the date and time. You have to specify as well the scores. Kailangan na ipakita mo sa mga readers mo ano bang score, di ba? Baka sinabi mo na lang nanalo si Team A against Team B. Di mo naman sinabi ano bang score nila. So you have to also specify that. And also, you have to tell them who won. Just clarify that. And then whether the game was the first, second, and so on match of the year or the season. I am really hoping that most of our schools, most of our colleges and universities in the Philippines would do more sports, you know, like not just a one-time event, pero sana magkaroon talaga sila ng parang annual, no, na running na event. I think that is much like the responsibility of the MAPE department, or if not, the physical education department ng mga universities and colleges natin. Ayan, so that they can create this kind of parang sports community, a sports ambience to strengthen the spirit of teamwork, the spirit of sports in the university. It helps a lot, actually. The next one is that the sports writer must use jargons. Yes. Kaso dapat they use it wisely. Okay. I think we are going to talk more about that. Pero when we say jargons kasi, these refer to the following terms like steals, rebounds, fouls, offensive fouls, technical fouls, like the different people in the game, like an umpire, diba? Dapat acquainted siya doon, alam niya yung mga tawag sa mga yon. Baka hindi naman pala niya alam na ang tawag dun sa ginagamit ng mga badminton players, yung pinampapalo nila is racket. It's racket. Diba? Tapos di niya alam na ang tawag dun sa uri ng bola na ginagamit sa ganitong klaseng sports, it's made up of something, so it has to be called something else, diba? Ganon. Like, a sports writer must be acquainted with sports jargon. Also, yung mga, mamaya ito, pero bigyan ko na rin kayo ng konting insight about this. Kapag halimbawa, nanalo yung isang team, tapos like super close lang yung scores nila, hindi mo naman pwedeng sabihin it was a landslide win. No! You may just, kailangan mag-isip ng ibang mga terms, like halimbawa, nipped, ayan, like they nipped the championship, ayun, o kaya they snatched the championship, parang it was a quick snatch, so it must have been like very close na the opponent got it, pero they took it away from them, like quickly, diba? We have to think about how and when and how much of these words are we going to use in our sports article. Kasi baka mag-end up naman tayo na puro na lang jargon yung mga pinaglalagay natin sa article natin. Hindi na na-gets ng mga readers natin. Okay, so these jargons are only used to add more action, to add more spice, to add more movement to our sports articles. Another thing that we have to consider in covering the game is that we have to practice impartiality and accuracy. Tayong mga sports writers, malamang meron tayong mga teams na pinanggagalingan. Tulad na lang halimbawa, when I was in college, I was tasked to cover badminton. And syempre, I was from the College of Education. I was from the Institute of Teacher Education at that time. So, Team Dolphins ako nun. Since it was a badminton match, we had players from the Dolphins. So, the Dolphins were competing against the Tamaraws, which were from the Institute of Home Science and Technology. They were also fighting players from the Bulls, which is from the Institute of Agricultural Systems and Technology. And from all other institutes pa. In covering that game, if my team lost against a particular team and it was already a championship match, say for instance it was badminton, so maybe it was singles men championship and it was Dolphins versus Bulls and then Dolphins lost, I have to be fair in reporting. Hindi naman pwedeng laitin ko yung naging strategy ng winning team simply because my team lost the championship to them. Okay, so that is also something that you have to keep in mind as a sports writers. Dapat you are impartial. You also have to be accurate in telling about the story. Okay, the story matters a lot, and you have to make sure that your stand in it is not emphasized. Dapat the story, the action is what's being emphasized in the story. Okay? That ends our discussion, our lecture about covering the game. Let's now proceed to how to write naman the sports story na. The first thing that you need to consider is you have to show them the score and the outcome. Actually, Elena Q Tanodra emphasized lang what should be found in a sports story. Okay, ano yung dapat niyang makita sa sports story? And the first among them, ang sabi niya is, kailangan yung scorer or yung outcome must be shown in the sports article. Okay? Siyempre, para malaman ng reader kung sinong nanalo at kung gaano kalayo yung mga scores. The second thing, Elena Q Tanodra wants to see in a sports story is the significance of the results. So I already told you about this. Make sure that it was emphasized. Was it a championship fight? Ayan. So will a victory of one team even up an old score? Makakabawi ba sila sa isang score na matagal na nilang parang kinasadlakan? Ayan. So what's gonna be the effect of that, of winning a particular match? And how does the result affect the team's standing in the entire tournament, if it's a tournament? Halimbawa, if it's a Mobile Legends tournament and then this team won like 4 times in a row, what's gonna be the meaning of winning in this particular match, in their 5th match? You have to emphasize that. Okay? The third one is spectacular plays. I already told you about this. Was there a moment in that Valorant game when a particular player clutched it, or aced it? Yan. So, meron bang part yung game na tinake lahat ng isang player, yung lahat ng kalaban, alone, without help? You have to also emphasize that. Remarkable steals, remarkable home runs, remarkable basket spikes, and smashes must be emphasized in your sports event. Yung talagang napa-roar na yung crowd dahil like hindi nila in-expect na mangyayari yon. O kaya, pwede mo rin sabihin dyan yung isang particular na round na ang tagal ng pasahan ng bola in a game of volleyball. Like, wala talagang gustong magpatinag. Ayun, tapos sabihin mo rin dyan, pwede mo na rin sabihin dyan, sino yung nag-end nung napaka-tagal na palitan na yon. You can also emphasize it in there. Okay, so number 4 is comparison ng mga teams. So you may compare them. Meron bang height advantage yung kabilang team? Okay, so meron bang experience advantage yung isang player over the other? Like, matagal na bang lumalaban sa mga competitive matches yung player na to, tapos yung kalaban niya ngayon is neophyte pa rin sa ganong klaseng sport? You have to emphasize that. You may also write about key characteristics ng isang team, tapos kung gaano or kung paano sila nag-excel over the other. Ayan. You can also emphasize kung saan sila parang equal. Halimbawa, in terms of weight, itong dalawang boksingerong to, talagang parehong-pareho sila and sanay na sila sa ganong klaseng division. Matagal na silang nagpa-fight or lumalaban dun sa division na yon, sa weight division na yon. So, you can also emphasize that. May mga times, diba, na yung mga boksingero, bago pa lang sila, like, bago-bago pa lang silang lumaban sa ganitong klaseng weight division. Diba? So, you can also emphasize that. Okay, so the 5th one naman that Elena Q Tanodra would like to see in your sports article is that you have to emphasize nga the individual stars, especially sa mga team events. Okay? Talk about how some players emerged from the teams. Napaka-importanting malaman. Sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, name, yung age nila, pwede yung height nila if it's a defining factor. Pero kung hindi, pwede mo rin sabihin yung kanilang experience in competitive gaming. Yan, you may also emphasize that. Are they good at, if they are good at serving a ball that is impossible to receive, you have to emphasize that. If they have the reputation for knockouts, yan, o yung mga talagang matitinding left, you also have to emphasize that, okay? That adds some more details, that adds some more excitement and action to your article. And then the 6th one is weather condition. I know, it's just a minor detail, but it also adds kasi to the mood of the game. So, if the weather, especially if it's an open air match, you may want to emphasize the weather kasi it gives the reader the experience of being there with you. So, halimbawa ginawa yung track events, no? Track and field events, tapos biglang umuulan. Ayan. So, you may say that. You may add that particular detail in your sports article para mas ma-gets, mas ma-feel ng mga readers ninyo yung mismong sports event, yung mismong match na yon. Okay, and then for the 7th one, this is the second to the last one, crowd and celebration. So speaking of the mood of the event, kailangan mo ring ma-emphasize kung ano yung mga naging reaction, ano yung naging behavior ng iyong mga crowd. So, were they cheering so loudly? Or were they serious in the beginning of the game? Ayan. O kaya, if you want to, you may also emphasize how they behaved in some key spectacular plays. Pwede mong pagsamahin yung mga yan. Like, there was this particular steal, there was this particular clutch, there was this particular triple kill that made the crowd shout. Okay, so you may want to put that in your you may want to put them together. Some sports writers are actually using this, the crowd, okay, the behavior of the crowd as their leads. They are putting it like at the forefront of their news stories. Okay, para siguro talagang yung feeling ng readers para siyang pumasok dun sa mismong event center, dun sa venue. Pagka-open ng mga doors, narinig na niya kaagad yung cheering crowds. Tapos the game is already like at the heat of it. Ayan, so you may want to do that too. It's up to you. How do you do it? Pero some sports writers are doing that. It was like the reader, upon reading the very first lines of the sports article, ganun yung feeling. The doors opened, the players are already sweating, they are already tired, it was already the heat of the game, there was so much tension. Okay, tapos like you can tell them about who won already. Ayan. So, that is it for the 7th one. For the last one and the 8th one, action. The lead must be denoting some action. It must not be static. Okay? Hindi yung dapat alam mo yun, parang nag-i-inform ka na lang kung sino yung nanalo. No! You have to give them a bit of an action, a bit of that movement, okay, that happened in the court, that happened in the match. You have to put that. You have to also use some standalone verbs to add some more action to your narrative. For example, if Team A wins by a few points, pwede mong sabihin na Team A shades Team B. Ganon. Shades kasi is already standing on its own. So, it's understandable that Team A won against Team B. Ayan. Now, other words can be used naman if, halimbawa, there is a great margin sa mga scores. Like, one may use rout or root, yata yung basa dito. Overwhelm, clobber, or whip. Ayan. So, if Team A won with a great margin against Team B, you can say that Team A whipped Team B by a lot of points. Ayan. So, you may emphasize that. How did the match go? You may summarize that by using only one word. Okay? And make sure that that one word is a verb. Hindi yung parang description lang siya or like adjective lang siya. You may use verbs or action words. Ayan. So we're done with the lecture for how to write a sports story. Again, let me clarify that this is based on the book The Principles of Campus Journalism that was written by Elena Q, Tanodra. Now, if you are interested in knowing about other videos that are in this series, not just sports writing, I have them in a playlist. You may visit my playlists and then look for the probe. Ayan. This is the 10th video in that series, and what we were able to accomplish here are the following objectives. First is you were able to know the main difference between a straight news story and a sports story. You were also able to know the requirements of good sports writing, and you were also able to know how to cover a sports event. Now, it's up to you now to go out there and then I told you kung walang sports event, what can you do is to review your team's previous performance or your school's team's previous performances in different sports events. Yeah, so I hope that this video helped you out, and I'm also wishing that tawag doon, you appreciated the kind of work that we're doing here. My goal is to make you a very good campus journalist, and I am hoping that I am imparting that with you. I am Sir Siege, and I am hoping to see you in the next video in the series. Watch out for development communication.